You didn't have time. Huh? What? Go ahead. If you think you can make it, get up there. I wonder if you're going to be a leaper like your little sisters, your big sisters. Except for Bella, she was never really a leaper. Not like Harley. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And first of all, I want to apologize for any lag or maybe low level emissions from the internet aspect. We have a major storm coming through and some thick clouds with rain and everything coming through the area. So it's kind of interfering a little bit. So I do want to apologize for that right off the bat. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about thanatology and necromantic study, especially that of the soul's migration, okay, from the time you're born to the time you die. When we're young, we think we own the world, we got the world by the proverbial balls. So when you're young, you think that you're unstoppable, you're invincible, so to speak. I mean, you watch little children and how they play. My son, who is going to be 4 this coming September, I watched some of the things that he's done over the last year and a half, and it's funny because there's no fear, there's no thought process of what if I fall and get hurt. Okay, you see what I mean? So he'll be jumping on the couch and he'll climb from the couch onto a different couch from that's on the backside. Okay, or he'll climb over the toys to get to that couch, and he'll jump from one location to another without any recollection of getting hurt. Okay, you see, that's the type of thought form that I want to put in your head from the beginning stages of the soul's journey. And it's interesting because when you get older, you tend to be more arrogant, ego driven. It especially around the teenage years where you're trying to break away from your parents, you're trying to get into that state of mind where I want to do things on my own. I want to get my first job. I want to start earning my way in the world. That type of egotistical thought form. Just because you're on, say, the varsity baseball team, driving a sports car because you have a part-time job and you're getting A's and B's in school, so to speak, and then you get into college and it's, let's just drink and party. No, we're not going to get in trouble for this stuff. That type of mentality. That ego-driven mentality where you think you can do it all. Okay, and it's funny because of the fact when by this stage, a lot of times you're not hitting the book seriously. You're not delving into your rituals or your path working studies on a serious basis. You may have some kind of recollection of what you want to do with your life. Okay, and it's interesting because I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be a soldier. You know, one moment I wanted to be a soldier, on another moment I wanted to be a cop. And then a firefighter. When I got into junior high, you know, I was already working for the school system. That was back in the day when you could easily do that type of stuff. Now they have a standard where you have to have a work permit when you're 15, and just to have a part-time job, and you have to work within a certain amount of hours. Okay. And then by the time you're 16, well, you can have a job anywhere, you know, and you can't deal. And nowadays, you can't even work. I find it funny at my job. I work in fast food right now, part time. And it's funny because of the fact you got these 17-year-olds who can come in and into the workplace, and they can do a lot of things. They can drive a car, they can drive like an hour and a half from wherever they're living to come to work. They can get a job, you know but yet here's the kicker: they can't touch a fucking knife. They cannot touch a fucking knife to cook. They can do that at home, no problem, but in the workplace, it's forbidden. Okay. You see, this is part of the intermediary change, where you got the thought form of reality, okay, but also the ego-driven will of the practitioner. And I want you to get a full understanding of this and where I'm about to go with this. Now, by the time I got into high school, I thought it was just more of a game, that social game of trying to figure out, oh, which class of people do I want to associate with? You know? And at that point, it's more important because you're led to believe that it is. You see, in thanatology, it is the study of life and death. It is the study of the soul's journey from the beginning to the end. So once you get past college and you start realizing, you're out of school, oh, it's not as easy as I was led to believe it is. That's when reality hits. That's when reality hits you. And it's funny because I see this all the time on social media. I see this in the workplace, you know, because I'm not just a practitioner and an ordained priest, but I'm also working in the fast food area of restaurants part time. So I get to experience all of this stuff and watch from the sidelines. Okay. And it's really interesting to see. It's not until you get into your 30s or your 40s that you really look back at your childhood and said, "Damn, was I stupid back then? I was naive." Perhaps this is the time, the late 20s, early 30s, you tend to make that transition, and you tend to want to work on your career, or you want to figure out, okay, this is the path that I want to get into, and this is what I want to dedicate my life to. You may even find yourself lucky enough to find that individual that you're going to share your life with and have. Get back here. Why are you cutting through daddy's legs? Huh? That's the newest member of our family, just so you know. And it's funny because of the fact that, oh, I messed up his name. Uh-oh. But anyways, it is funny to see because this is where people tend to get serious about what they're doing. Okay. This is where they really decide to get dedicated and seriously committed through their studies, their career. And now I got this kitten attacking my feet. So it's funny. Um, so then as you get into your, like I said, your 40s and your 50s, you're really delving into more spiritual aspects. You're getting into the more dedicated, committed study, research, your spiritualism, your practices. If you're into, say, voodoo, Satanism, demonolatry, you're really taking everything serious now by this stage. It's not about fun and games. It's not about video games and comparing D&D, profile fantasy role playing bullshit. No, this is where you really button down the hatches and you get serious. Okay. Now, keep in mind that not everybody is the same. Okay. Your ability to adapt to situations, either spiritual or physical, is based on you, the individual. And when we think thanatology or necrology for that matter, you come to that realization of reality. Okay. All things that live is eventually going to die, maybe even become a myth or a legend. About 10 years ago, when I started the Order of the Black Thorn, back just about, yeah, in a couple of years, it will be about 10 years. Yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting because when I first got back into Maine and I started the Order of the Black Thorn, I wanted it to be based upon knowledge, history, mythology. I wanted my order to be something different from all these stupidity and these overbearing price ranges of 666 or 333 or whatever the fucking price that they put out there on their products and shit. Okay. And what was interesting is just a couple years later, I was in a store, and the store is still around today. They just moved locations. And it was funny because I gave them my card, my business card, because they had this little glass, setting where they can lift it up and put business cards underneath so people could see them. And and I ended up at this gas station, and I was talking to the gas attendant, and we were talking, and he asked what I did, and I told him I'm a minister. And he says, "Really? Do you got a business card?" And I said, "Yeah." So I gave it to him, and he said, "Damn, I thought you were a fucking myth." You see, this is the type of mythology I'm talking about. Things that have gone down in mythology, history, things that people assume is not real. You see, that's the ego. That is the atheistic perspective upon spiritualism. Because you don't see it, you don't believe it. But when you get older, you tend to go for it full on. The more older you get, reality sits in, and eventually you die. Okay? Now, in Slavic sorcery, mythology, we have Kakashi. Okay? He's a great and powerful necromancer, said to have made a pact with Baba Yaga. Okay? And here we see where he made this blood pact and this oath, and he became an immortal. His soul was removed and put into a number of different things and eventually hidden on a mysterious island. Okay. You can actually look that up for yourself so you can actually get the full brunt of the story. I'm just giving you the cliff notes of it. Okay. Now, what's interesting to see also is that in The Art of Dying, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, we see where the body is breaking down. Today, since 43, I think, a new branch of the medical perspective came into play, and it was known as thanatology. And it really became associated with the medical profession around the 1970s, about 40 some odd years after World War II. And it was said that this branch of medical practice came around almost in the same way as psychology, okay, sociology, or say, for an example, that of necrology, based upon all the souls that had perished during World War II. Now, you got to remember, millions of people perished during that time. That's why it was a world war. Okay. So a lot of people were superstitious. So this practice came around to be the study of death and the dying. And thanatologists, there's very few individuals who actually study thanatology on a serious level. They go in, their duty is much like the CNA, the certified nurse's aide. They go in, they deal with the patient. They listen to the patient, they take care of the patient, they make sure the patient is comfortable. They listen not only to the patient and helping that patient come to terms with the fact that they're dying, that they're physically ill, their bodies are breaking down and dissolving. But their jobs don't stop there. They also have to deal with the family. Okay. They have to deal with the family's lives. They have to understand where the family is coming from. This is where the psychology comes into play. Because on one hand, you're dealing with the emotions and the feeling of hopelessness and the reality of the fact that you're going to die. Okay. You look at all these stories with the coronavirus. Okay. All these people, gasping for air, and their last thoughts is, it's too early. I want to talk to my family. I want to say goodbye. And they're getting ready to put them into a medically induced coma. Okay. And the whole time they are literally gasping for air with these masks on their faces. Okay. If you haven't seen these videos, I recommend that you type in, you go underneath YouTube, you go underneath Google, and you type in some of this stuff. Okay. Just to sit there and watch it. I mean, I watched when I was out at my mother's house throughout last year, I was watching the news articles, just the videos on the news as they're videoing these people literally having such a hard time that they have to be put into a medically induced coma just to survive and to be treated. Where all these new rules and regulations are being employed to benefit the patient. On a lot of level, it is all about the money. That's always going to be in the background. But we're talking people, okay? Sociology, how you deal with people, how you associate with them, how you help them transition. And I was reminded of this because the Tibetan Book of the Dead, page 270, down at the bottom, conclusion of the introduction to the intermediate state of the time of death and the intermediate state of reality. Okay? Very, very explanatory, self explanatory. And it's funny because of the fact that when we deal with necromancy and we deal with all aspects of it, meditation and spiritualism, reality, dealing with your emotions, becoming balanced, all of this stuff plays into an account here. Okay? And I just want to read you one paragraph here. Since it is generally the case that one will experience bewilderment at the time of death, this liberation by hearing is indispensable. However, one's degree of familiarity with meditative practices. In the case of those who have considerable familiarity with with meditative experience, the recognition of the nature of reality can arise instantly. As soon as awareness separates from the material body, therefore, it is essential to cultivate this experience of reality during one's lifetime. You've heard right there, I want to stop right there. And this is why. Have you ever had an instance where it's like your entire life just flashes between your eyes? You have that health scare. Death has been a part of your life in one form or another throughout life. Either you've had your own mortality called into question, or you're dealing with a format of someone else close to you, most likely a family member or a friend, a coven member. Okay. I had a sister who recently lost her husband earlier this year. Death. I had a I've got a brother who's dying, literally, of a disease. And it's very interesting to see how the reality comes into play. And that section of that one paragraph really stuck out to me. So when we're thinking thanatology and we're thinking cosmology, necrology, even sociology, you're dealing with the reality of your own mortality, coming to grasps with that. You're dealing with the realization of what's happening. Necromancy is the study of death, and especially when you go into the Roman aspects of it, nigromancy. Okay, nigromancy. Nigromancy is the study of black magic. And when we get into this, we also see the grimoire traditions of, say, Francis Barrett, or the grimoire of Armadale. Okay, Eliphas Levi, one of the greats. Okay, who have literally transcended through their works. One of two ways: rejuvenation of a corpse, or the conjuration of a spirit. The the Tibetan Book of the Dead literally tells you and helps you transition throughout the journey of the soul from the time you enter this world to the time you enter. And literally, there's a lot of consideration near the end of the book of what happens and what transpires after. You go into any religion, any philosophy, voodoo, you're dealing with your ancestors. Christianity, you're dealing with either heaven or hell. Going to Greek, you go into serving the gods, especially those of the gods of Mount Olympus, or perhaps the Egyptian perspective, the Shem priests, okay, where their job wasn't just to perform the rites and rituals and the states of mummification, but to the removal of the four main organs, okay, while this process is being done. And when they get to the afterworld, you see the platform and the huge line of Anubis, the souls that have perished, waiting for their transcendence, either to the so-called heavenly sky or that of the fire and brimstone of hell. Okay, I want you to think about that, because Anubis is the jackal-headed dog. Okay, and it's funny because of the fact that the image that you get from mythology is that he's the Lord of the Dead in Egyptian mythology. He stands on the platform with a portal right behind him. The souls coming up literally coming up to him, and it changes from either this bluish white light type portal to a vacuum in space, the wasteland, the abyss.
You think that? Has his eyes been cleaned? His photo box been cleaned? Alright, I gotta go.
Sorry, that's my better half. So, anyways, I want you to consider this. I want you to really pay attention to mythology, because you have Hades in Greek, you have Supe, the Lord of the Dead in Inca, okay, Anubis in Egyptian, Satan in Christianity, Baron Samedi or Dambella, okay, in Voodoo, okay. I want you to take in consideration of this. If you go into Slavic witchcraft, you have Chernobog, the dark god. Zoroastrianism, you have Orion, okay? Go back into Mesopotamia, and you have Zuzu, okay? Go into Norse mythology, and you have Hel. She's not in much of the same way as, say, for an example, that of, let's go with Abaddon in angelology or demonology, okay? I want you to think about this, because in some cases, you're going to see a being that is not only a place, but is also an actual being. Abaddon was one of them. Hell in Norse mythology is another. Okay? So think about this stuff. And as you journey through your soul and you become more acquainted with the balancing factor and the reality of your situations, I want you to look at your life. What's brought you to who you are today and what you're dealing with, what you're going through. When you deal with the dead and dying, either as a priest or priestess, clergyman, clergywoman, or even a practitioner, I want you to think about this stuff. Everything has been rewritten. Everything has been repopularized in some form or fashion based off the original transcripts, the original text from 2,500 years ago. I'm talking Sanskrit, Mesopotamian, first, second, and third dynasties of Egypt. You look at how they've transpired from the old world to the new world, into Eastern and Western philosophies. How a lot of things now, where you had just practitioners being trained to do things, you now have to have a license stating that you are certified to do that. When you become a minister, you now have a minister's license. Back in the day, you just wore these friar tuck type outfits. Before that, you had the hexa, the ashi, the aji, the strega, the witch, the mage, the sage, and yes, even the wizard and the necromancer, the shaman, the healers from Native American traditions, and the gods that they worshipped. So when we think necrology, when we think the recording of one's life through a grimoire, either the dream journal, the meditation journal, or the grimoire of their practices, I want you to think about this stuff. Where did you get the knowledge today? Where did it originate from? When we think of the English cadaver, we can go into German, the Glick, or the Russian Lick, the leak, the Greek necrophage, necrology, necromancy, the art of death, the art of divination. There are so many practices that go out within necromancy that people are not aware of, and most don't have the gall or the ability, the willingness to delve into black magic on its most basic meaning. Most don't even have the ability or the willingness to go solitary, to find and seek out these truths. I always say, whatever you preach, back it up. Multiple different sources. The Path of Shadows, very good book. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, Evil Archaeology. Get into necromancy, get into mythology, world mythology. Get into the arcana, the grimoire systems. You're going to find no matter where you go, doesn't matter the tradition, you're going to see the good versus evil, the light versus day, the so-called perspective of what's good and what's evil. But more so, when you start meditating, you start getting serious with your practices, you're going to literally see the veil be pulled back and your eyes are going to be open with those scales removed. I want you to think about that. There's a lot of things that go along with necromancy, and a lot of people will shy away from it because they're afraid. Don't be ashamed by that. It just means that that path is not for you. Not everybody is made to be a Satanist. Not everybody is made to be a voodoo practitioner, a Bokor or a Memba, a Hungan, or even a Palero or Miramberos, within Santeria, Palo Mayambi traditions. Not everybody is made out to be a witch or a warlock, a mage or a sage. Sometimes you're going to find yourself just simply dealing with the modern day outlooks. Either way, I believe it was Christopher Penziak that said it best in his book, the third of the series known as the Book of, was it the Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft, where he literally breaks down the mind. 3 sections of the mind broken down into 7 levels. He even goes into the actual state of what the practitioner's job and description of duties is. We're not just healers. We're not just spiritualists. We're not just ministers. We are the ones that study death. And I was recently watching a video on YouTube. I believe it was yesterday, if I remember correctly. No, it was Wednesday. And it was interesting because of the fact that this individual had done a couple of videos on her YouTube channel. And I'm going to bring that up right now on my cell phone so I can actually give you the exact name of the individual. The Realm of the Sacred Roots. The Art of Death Magic is the name of the video. And it's very, very interesting to see somebody else's perspective on this. I've been around several different types of practitioners of necromancy, black magic, and everything. I'm going to bring up her. Here we go. So I hope you could see that. That's actually her page. And what I did was I was listening to this video, and I literally went underneath her video and I told her people she's not lying about her. And more so, Just secure. There we go. Uh, signal dropped there for a second due to the storm. But people, the way I put it to them is that listen to her words because she is speaking the truth to you. This path is not one of easy. It's not one of easiness. It is not one for the faint of heart. And I've said that in the past. It's a This path most likely will end up with you being a solitary practitioner. It will most likely leave you an outcast in society. Most people will probably be afraid of you if you come out and say, "Hey, I'm a necromancer." Woo! You know, or even a Satanist because they have that closed-minded view that they've been fed by the JCI, the Judo-Christian Society, the institutions of the various different, well, let's just call it JCI manifestations. Best way I can put it there. Now, I'm by no means a fan of Christianity. I've had my share of headbutting with them, but Dracul von Craven, hello, welcome to the channel. So yeah, so you will find that you're going to have trials. You're going to find that you're going to have, well, let's just say hardship and leave it at that. But if you're not willing to give yourself over to the path and live it fully committed, fully dedicated, no matter what the tradition, you're not going to get very far. A lot of people that I've seen come to me personally have come and they're going, well, how do I do this to become rich and famous? Well, number one, it's not about ego. It's not about rich money. It's not about the commonwealth. It's not about the world. It's about spiritualism. It's about you. It's about mastering yourself. It's about self evolution. And most importantly, it's about mastering the arts and traditions that have been passed down and written about for hundreds of thousands of years. Okay. And a lot of times, you're most likely going to find that you're going to be studying one deity, just one deity, for up to roughly, depending on your train of thought, roughly about 6 months. It took me roughly about 6 to 8 months just on one deity before a brother and I got together and we were just shooting the breeze, going through the different languages and the runes and the alphabets and the different linguistics that were put in place throughout history and the minor changes. Because in some cases, you're going to find that they're going to drop a letter or a vowel, or they're going to increase it by one. Okay. Now you take, for an example, in Russian, you got Chernobog. Okay. Now the one that a lot of people have come through, if you follow some of Strudwood's works, is it's CERN is how it's pronounced. It's the way he spelled it. But if you go into mythology and you go into Slavic, okay, traditions, it's actually CHERN. Okay, it's in Chernobog. Okay, brother of Belobog. Okay, the god of light. And it's interesting to see the commonality because out of all the Slavic traditions, Belobog and Chernobog are used interchangeably in a lot of different topics. So you got to pay attention to those minor details. And this is what I'm talking about, is because you're going to find that in cases of this, you're going to have to do a lot of dedicated research and dedicate a lot of time to your studies and to your practices. It's not something quick or fun. It's not something to go, oh, I'm a necromancer. Look at me. I'm going to beat my chest. Woo! No, it's nothing like that. This path is the path of a Satanist or the path of a demonologist. The path of a necromancer is one of lifetime study. It's not something quick and fun. It's something of dedicated, committed lifestyle. Okay. And this individual that I mentioned to you, she literally came out and told you point blank in her videos the same thing, just in her own voice. All right. So if this is a path that you want to get into, I'm going to tell you straight, prepare for the long haul. She said it best herself. So, all right. Have a good one. I want to thank you, Dracul, for jumping on here with me. And for the others who are just watching and those who will come in the future, subscribe if you want. This is an educational channel. And hopefully you learn from it. But I will tell you this straight, whatever you practice or whatever you preach, back it up with numerous sources. And most importantly, make yourself available to the public because you are responsible for what you do. All right? Have a good one.